It was a sultry night in New York City when the first warning bells began to cut through the humid air, a thin, urgent sound that would change the colony forever. The year was 1741. New York was a bustling, cramped port where merchants and sailors rubbed shoulders with artisans, poor whites, indentured servants, and a substantial enslaved population. Nearly 1 resident in 5 was held in bondage. The memory of Stono and other southern revolts was fresh. Britain was at odds with Catholic Spain. Rumors moved as quickly as ships. All of these pressures made the city a tinderbox. Then came the fires. Over the spring months, a string of small blazes broke out in tenements, warehouses, and stables. No single inferno devastated the town, but the sequence of flames fed a growing fear. Were these accidents, or the opening acts of a coordinated slave rebellion? The city's leaders answered with swift, ruthless certainty. Investigations focused on the margins, the taverns and alleys where enslaved men and women, poor whites, and immigrant laborers met. A tavern run by a couple named Hewson became notorious. A young indentured servant, Mary Burton, whose testimony prosecutors would hold up as keystone evidence, pointed fingers at acquaintances and strangers alike. Then there was John Ury, an itinerant schoolmaster accused of being a Catholic priest and a Spanish agent. Authorities, primed by anti-Catholic paranoia and wartime anxieties, read foreign conspiracy into every rumor. Trials followed at breakneck speed. The evidence was often testimony promised in exchange for leniency, confessions extracted under fear, and the hearsay of neighbors eager to save themselves. That legal crucible produced dramatic spectacles, public examinations, tearful denunciations, and the reveal of supposed plans to set the city ablaze and massacre its white inhabitants, paving the way for a general uprising. Officials portrayed a grand conspiracy. Enslaved people, aided by poor whites and trailed by Catholic agents of Spain, would burn New York and hand it to the enemy. The punishments were brutal and final. More than 100 people were arrested. Dozens were condemned. Histories vary in exact tallies, but over 30 men and women, both black and white, were executed or died in custody, and many others were transported out of the colony to be sold into labor in the Caribbean. Families were shattered, businesses ruined, and neighborhoods left to nurse a paranoia that would harden into law. What, then, was the truth of the conspiracy? For centuries, the event was told as a near miraculous thwarting of a slave insurrection. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, historians began to scrutinize the records and found a more complicated picture. Elements of a plot may have existed. Small groups of enslaved people did talk about escape or revenge, and colonial New York had contacts with foreign ports where Britain's enemies gathered. But much of the case rested on suspicious confessions, incentives for informants, and the eager imagination of a frightened elite. Anti-Catholic sentiment and class hostility helped turn isolated acts and rumors into a citywide panic. Some modern scholars argue there was a conspiracy. Others see mass hysteria and scapegoating. Many settle somewhere between, a dangerous mixture of real unrest and manufactured evidence. Regardless of the precise reality, the consequences were unmistakable. The 1741 crisis tightened the web of control over black life in New York. Stricter curfews, harsher punishments, and deeper social divisions. Public memory would oscillate between warning and myth. The story of New York in 1741 remains a cautionary tale. How fear and politics can convert rumor into law, how vulnerable lives become fodder for public spectacle, and how a city's anxieties, like a single spark in dry tinder, can set an entire community